Hello party people, it is Will Pemble here. I am back in the garage. Do you see how much cleaner the garage is getting? Today I thought what we would do is try and make a little bit of progress on one of the wheel assemblies so that I can start to get my head around how I'm going to build those. As you may recall, we're using much bigger wheels for the Iron Dragon. These like 4-inch diameter wheels instead of the 2-inch diameter wheels that we used. And the axles are much thicker. They're 1/2 inch instead of 5/16. They are much wider, and they're going to allow us to get the cart up farther away from the track. We're going to be able to go faster in one revolution so that the whole thing ought to work a lot better. But what I thought today I would do is try to get my head around how it is we're going to build these wheel assemblies so that they get a little bit more like those awesome things that we see at amusement parks. So for starters, what I'm trying to do is get a feel for just the size and the scale of the whole thing. One of these wheels, for example, is, like we said, one of these wheels is 4 inches in diameter. What that means is this one wheel is going to be almost as big as an entire wheel assembly on the coasters that we've built in the past. So I want to try to get an idea of how that whole thing is going to scale up. I'm using this 2-inch angle iron. You can see this 2-inch angle iron, and it's an 1/8 inch thickness, which I think will be plenty strong. So I'm using 2-inch angle iron at an 1/8 of an inch thickness. And now what I need to do is figure out where I'm going to place these wheels in the big scheme of things. So from the back of the wheel assembly, I want to have 1 inch of clearance from the back of the wheel assembly would be one way of doing it, so that the wheel would be protected by steel. Another way, if these are the mains, right? So if you imagine it, and we've also decided on steel rails for the track, right? So let's put a piece of steel down here, and this will simulate our track. So if the track is bending up, right, if you imagine this piece of track curving up, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the thing that bumps into an upward hill, if this were to go up a hill, right, we want to make sure that the first thing that bumps into the incline is wheel and not wheel assembly, wheel housing, right? So I'll put this stuff over here to just kind of hold our rail in place ever so slightly. So maybe what we do is for our wheel assembly, we start out absolutely even with the edge of the wheel. So the wheel assembly and the leading edge of the wheel are both, I don't even know, I'm thinking I want it to stick out a little bit. And so I'm going to go with 1.5 inches is going to be the center of the axle. Then how far apart do we want this part to be, right? What kind of clearance do we want in between these two wheels? The whole thing is going to be made of steel, so there won't be any danger of things flexing and bumping into each other. But just for safety and for things that we haven't thought of yet, maybe let's figure we'll put 1 inch in between the trailing edge of this wheel and the leading edge of this wheel, which, as you might imagine, gives us a 5-inch space between the center of this wheel and the center of that, right? 4-inch diameter wheel, inch of clearance, 5 inches. And then for the trailing edge, we can have the trailing edge of the wheel assembly even with the trailing edge of this wheel, which will give us a total length for our wheel assembly, our main piece of our wheel assembly, of 8 inches. You see how I get there? So then what I might want to do is measure 8 inches down make sure I've got a nice straight line to cut. And that's going to be the thing that holds these wheels, and it's going to look something like that. Let me introduce you to my new best friend. This is a portable battery operated bandsaw. So it's like a hacksaw that does this. I love this tool so much. All right, now I'm going to chop up that piece we just measured. And yes, I know we have now moved into the part of the garage which is not as clean just yet, but I'm getting there. All right, I love this saw because if you look at some of the older videos, I had that big chop saw, and this thing is just beautiful and elegant and smooth, and I feel like it's a lot safer, and it's certainly less noisy. My neighbors love this new saw, maybe more than I do. Okay, so now I've got the two pieces of steel that I think are going to hold all the wheels that I need in the places that I need them. I've got a funky red stripe across my forehead from wearing my safety equipment, but I'd rather have a funky red stripe across my forehead for a little while than to not be safe. So there's that. Now let's measure and drill holes to hold this stuff in place. So the first thing I want to do is I want to agree with myself where the front of each of these pieces are going to be, because as you can see, the back is a little bit cattywampus. My awesome handheld saw is not as precise as my awesome chop saw, although it is quieter and faster and easier, and I think it'll be just fine. But these look pretty square, right? They look pretty good, so I'm just going to decide that this is the front of each of these things, and I'm going to do that very simply by putting an arrow here, and an arrow here, and here, and here, and that way I know that that is the side that is going frontwards, right? So, as we discussed, we're going to put one of these things at about 1.5 inches in. When I say these things, I mean holes for the wheel. Right? So we're going to move down here. I'm going to use this guy here. It's going to be easier to see, easier to find, easier for you to see. So we've got one here at 1.5. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's where we want to put our wheels. Right? So we will put them there. Draw a line there. And then, just set that there for illustrative purposes. Then we'll have a wheel here. And we'll have a wheel here. And I feel pretty good about that. So now I'm just going to mark those and drill them. So over the last couple of years that I've been doing this sort of stuff, I've gathered up a whole bunch of tools. I've particularly gathered up a whole bunch of tools for doing machine-y type of things to do with skateboard wheels. For example, I have an uncountable number of 5/16 drill bits. I know how to sharpen drill bits. I can do just about anything with a 5/16 inch drill bit, which is pretty awesome. What I don't have, as it turns out, any of is a 1/2 inch drill bit. I don't have a single 1/2 inch drill bit except this 1/2 inch spade bit, and as you may know, a 1/2 inch spade bit is not going to go through metal in any kind of a beautiful way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run off to the hardware store and get myself not one but 2 1/2 inch drill bits that I can use to cut 1/2 inch diameter holes in the steel so that we can continue building our wheel assembly. So that, I'm afraid, it's not all we have time for today, but it's all we have tools for today. So I'm off to the hardware store, and next time we will pick up where we left off, finishing up this awesome front wheel assembly. In the meantime, if you like this video and you love the Iron Dragon project, please subscribe and like and share and do all of those things. Thank you for helping me to bring physics, family, and fun to kids everywhere. I am Will Pemble, and I'll see you next time.